I'm a big fan of crime dramas, and when they're non-English, I'm all the more excited to check them out. This time it's the Netflix original series, The Mire. It's set in the 1980s in Poland. Two people are found murdered in the forest. At the same time, two teenagers commit suicide. A seasoned journalist and his newbie protege set out to report on the story, but find themselves entrenched in the mystery. Parts of this series felt a little like David Fincher's Seven, where you have a seasoned veteran who is looking to retire very soon, and he takes on just a newbie partner to show him the ropes. But he also then finds himself entrenched in this very deep mystery and struggling to solve it. There are also feels of another David Fincher movie, Zodiac, where you have a reporter who is obsessed with the puzzle and can't let go at any cost, who just dives in and tries to solve it. Now, I love both of those movies, so maybe that's why I see those similarities or why those stood out to me so much, or they even jumped out at me. I think the framework for the show and a lot what happens within it really works because of the setting. This is 1980s Poland. Now, I'm not very familiar with the political goings-on of that region and of that time, but I believe it was either communist or post-communist, and so there's still a lot of operating under fear, which means that for our journalist, the seasoned veteran, it allows him to assume identities, to go in and question people, and they don't even question him. Like, he could say, well, I'm the superintendent of this, or I'm the investigator of this, and because there is such a level of fear of the people, they don't question that. They don't even speak out to it. And so he is allowed to go into their homes, to question whoever he wants to question, to dive in, and without showing anything. There's no proof. There's no, well, yes, this is who I am. I said I'm the superintendent of this, or I'm the inspector of this. No, he doesn't even show any of that, and people just give him the information. So I think that's what really helps in this series, that it really helps to just, it allows him to dive in, and you have that underlying fear and mistrust of everybody, and it seethes throughout the show. And I think that also helps to set that tone where we even are a little fearful. We're a little unsure of what's going on. And so it ups the level of mystery as well. Now, the mystery part of this is okay, but I don't think it was spellbinding. The same goes for the character development. We do get some character development on a couple of people, but more often than not, I feel that it's pretty lacking, that we really could have had a lot more depth and insight into these characters, which would have then provided us just more background, more ways to empathize with them, or to figure out what's making them tick, or whatever that is, so that we feel more connected to them versus being just a distant observer as to all of the things going on. It would have helped me to connect with them even more. I think there's part of this too that doesn't connect with me because there are cultural references and there are just historical aspects to it that I'm unfamiliar with. And because they don't really explain it, it doesn't help to connect me to the story that much more. Now, the mystery's going on and I can follow along with that and I get that, but there's other underlying parts where you feel that there's something deeper. I know that they're saying something, and had I had the context for that, then maybe I would also be able to feel that as well, or I would be able to go along with them and to really just be sucked in even more. The acting is good all the way around, and you really begin to feel the oppressive fear that all the characters live with, that they're always looking over their shoulder, that an official or somebody could drag them in for questioning at any moment. That does come across, and I like that felt genuine, that it put me into the story in that way. The scenery is great, and it really transported me into the time. It was believable. You see all of the older cars, just the dress as well, and even the setting really added and became its own character. It just added to the darkness of the show. Now, there was one point that stood out to me as awkward or weird, and I think that was more of the translation and the subtitles than what was actually said. Now, because I don't speak the language, I don't know what actually said, but at one point, one of the characters was like, "My bad," and that just did not ring true for the 80s vernacular. The two plot lines are intriguing, and they can really tug at your emotions, but I also did feel that the pace meandered a little bit, that sometimes it was just taking a little too long or a little too slow to get to the point. And again, maybe that was because it wasn't resonating with me because of some of the cultural aspects or some of the history. Now, had they explained a little bit more, then maybe I would have felt that the pace was right on par. But as I'm watching this, I felt like, okay, I've already got this. I think you need to speed it up just a little bit so that I don't feel like you're repeating this over and over or wasting my time or taking a chunk of time that really becomes unnecessary because you've either already answered it or you've made it so obvious that I know what's happening. I just really could have used a lot more urgency in certain areas of that where I felt like a time presence just pressing on me, that we needed to solve this right away, that there was something like, oh my gosh, it has to happen because if we don't get it by this time, everything falls apart. And I never really got that. The conclusion is a little bit disappointing because it's fairly obvious. I mean, they showed it to us, they spelled it out for us, so there wasn't really a twist or even a aha reveal to it. It just kind of happened. And so therefore it was anticlimactic. I do like, however, though, that they open the door for a second season and to dive into more of the lore and the mystery of the mire. In the forest, there is this it's the marsh, and there's mystery in that. They briefly touch upon it, but it's so much more, and that's intriguing to me. That's, I think, where they could be going for the second season, should they do another season. I would love to watch that. I would love to see them uncover this because it doesn't necessarily lead to any urgency of that, but it could be a very interesting concept. And they can interweave some current story within it to tie in the history and what's going on and just make it really compelling. I don't know. I don't know if that's what they're going to do. I don't even know if there's going to be a second season, but they leave it open for that. And I hope that if they go down that road, they certainly address just the topic of the mire and really flesh that out for us. There is sex, nudity, profanity, and a bunch of violence. I give the mire 3 out of 5 couches. So what was your favorite thing about the 80s, if you were around then? I mean, I'm Gen X, so I grew up in the 80s. That was my late childhood and into teenage years right there. And so there's so many things that I could pull from that I absolutely loved about the 80s. There are some things that are terrible and should never come back, but you know, that also. But if you have a favorite thing from the 80s, or even that has made a resurgence that was from the 80s and now you've embraced it and now it's your thing, whatever that is, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.